Welcome, Visionary Woman. This week, we're talking about how much money I make when I take my breaks, how I take my breaks, and why self-belief matters more than external validation. This topic is a bit of a funny one, and it's come from me talking about the quarterly breaks that I take in my business and the fact that in May I took a break and I was personally paid about 21 to 22K. And I shared about this on socials because in my human design, I am supposed to expand other people when it comes to money. That's an integral part of my human design and an integral part of how I should market with my human design. So it's not my favorite thing to talk about how much money I make or my sales. It's not like I don't like to feel like I'm bragging about it, but actually the fact that I have come from having no money to purely on my own generating a lot of money and getting myself into a really stable place is part of my human design, and it's very expansive for the people who are ready to hear it. So that's why I do share these things. But recently I shared that I had this break and I had this income, and a lot of people on the internet didn't believe me. And to the point that they went and did detective work and tried to investigate their way into trying to prove that I was lying. Now, I think it's good that people have discernment. I don't think it's good that anyone wastes their precious time trying to do that. That's a really sad use case of someone's time. But I'm autistic. I don't lie. It's not a thing for me to tell fibs. It's just totally goes against my whole entire being. But the interesting part that I wanted to talk about today was the fact that because it was so far away from what people believed they were able to and allowed to have and make, they put more energy into trying to disprove it than entertaining it to be a possibility for themselves. And that's really genuinely very sad to me. I genuinely think that's very sad. And I do appreciate the discernment, and often you'll see people talking about how much money they've made and they don't disclose that they're spending $200,000 a year on ads. Now, I haven't paid for a single ad in my business since 2019. If I was paying for ads, I would tell you that. If their ads were working, I would tell you that. I haven't needed to, touch wood, and I don't want to. That's another aspect of this, that yes, of course, there's complexities, and at times, if I say I had an $80,000 month, what I mean is I converted $80,000 worth of sales. That doesn't mean that my business was paid $80,000 that month, and it definitely doesn't mean that me as an individual was paid $80,000 a month, but it means this month I got $80,000 into the business and it's going to be paid to me over time. So I have a cash flow projection. But this recent instance, I actually was paid $22,000 as a person. Now, that money, for total transparency, because if people don't want to believe me, maybe understanding a bit more about it will let them. That money was my monthly pay plus dividends plus a bonus. Dividends is a portion of the profit of what the business made, and you don't get taxed on it in the same way that you get taxed on normal income, because the business is already taxed on its profit. And all of that money was paid to me, literally to my personal bank account, and I've spent it. I spent a lot of it paying back tax debt. That's all done. But I have been a bit of a shopaholic in the last month, and I've bought a lot of stuff because I've spent the last 14 months paying down a tax debt that was more than most people earn in a year. So in this instance, I can say, no, I literally was paid 22 grand. I had the month basically off. I jumped into my branding projects once a month, and I had maybe 2 clients in the first week of that month. And other than that, I was offline. I was meant to do some traveling, but I got unwell. I got a virus, so I didn't. For me, This kind of experience, making 20 to 40 to 70 to 80K in a month and allowing myself to have 1 to 4 weeks offline per quarter, that has been my reality for about 4 years. It wasn't my reality before that. It wasn't my reality in the first 3 years of my business, but it's been my reality for the last 4 years. So when people unequivocally do not believe me and actually will say things like, I'm 100% I'm scamming. It's really wild to me that this thing that is incredibly normal in my life feels totally out of reach for other people. One of the things that I really think is incredibly important in business is that you have the belief in yourself and the self belief that you are capable of things that you didn't realize you are capable of, that you have more potential than you've yet realized, that things that seemed impossible, you could back yourself and achieve them. Now, a lot of people don't get to that stage of self belief. And I might also add in that I think running a business as a solo woman requires really strong self belief, and you're essentially just gambling with yourself and your own life and your own livelihood. You're just gambling and you're just putting the energy behind it and you're hoping that it works. And that's what it is. And it requires a huge amount of trust in the universe, but also in yourself. And a lot of the women business owners that I have in my community haven't built up that self-trust because they are not keeping the promises that they've made with themselves. They're making plans and breaking plans constantly. They're mapping out 3 months and then getting distracted and falling off the wagon and making up really beautiful excuses. But the reality is, because they've let themselves down so much, they don't have that self-trust in themselves. Another reason why people don't have the self-trust to believe that this is possible is that they're relying on external validation. Now, I see this a lot. I see this with people who have an unhealthy attachment to social media and what's going on there. And when social media is performing well, they feel good about themselves, they're consistent, they show up. And when it's not, they dip out. And the problem is that when you do that, it creates a lot of instability in the business and probably in your sense of self, because you're not sticking to what you said you were going to do and you're reactive to other people's opinions outside of your control. But it also really sabotages the business long term, because by constantly dipping in and out, you're not going to get any compounded interest on your efforts. So much of my business success this year in my business is due to me just continuously doing the same thing, saying the same thing, and showing up every day, every week, whether I wanted to or not, and whether I felt like it or not, whether I was upset or not. And that you have no idea how much just being repetitive and consistent builds a business and builds trust in your customer base. I can see that a lot of people wouldn't believe this to be true because they purely haven't developed the internal validation and self-trust that they know is required to create a life like that. I also can think of a beautiful client that I've had who was on this podcast, Della, and she spoke about how there was a point in our coaching together and I'd said to her, like, you need to get some sources of self-validation. You need to start validating yourself and not getting validation from any external sources. And she really spoke about how that really transformed her sense of trust with herself. And over time now, her business is doing really well. But it required her to no longer be looking to other people to validate herself. And that's what gives you that self-trust and that self-belief, so that you could continuously show up and build a business like mine where you're earning X amount, you're taking X amount of time off. I don't think that aspect of my business, like getting paid $22,000 in a month and having that month on holiday, I genuinely don't think that's wildly unconventional. Maybe I've been in it for too long, but I think more that there's a lot of people who make a lot more money than me and who are doing much better than me. But I guess maybe an everyday business owner who's struggling to make ends meet, this would seem unconventional. But you really cannot get there unless you believe that you have possibilities and potentialities that are outside of your current experience. If you're going, my current experience is that's the end of the game, then of course you're never going to allow yourself to invest in the structures and the systems that are required to build something different. I wanted to talk just really briefly about a couple of the ingredients that I need in order to take these breaks and to get this money, and a couple of the tools that I use as well. So, we in my business, we definitely use Later. So, Later is for content scheduling. So, you might think, oh, I see Clara online. She says she's not online, but I see her posting. I'm not posting that. That's a scheduling app that myself and my VA have scheduled ahead of time. So, Later is a content scheduling app. There's heaps of them. Later's the one that I like. And it allows for so much freedom, and it's pretty boring to sit there and schedule content, and it maybe is overwhelming to batch a month's worth of content at once, but that is how I can continue my compounded interest and continue to show up and continue to be consistent even though I'm offline. And on a more granular basis, I do this Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week. Like, I'm offline, logged off, not working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm at the point in life in my business where I'm like, if I can't get a 3-day weekend, what's the fucking point in doing any of it? So I'm offline. That tool helps us do that. Another tool that's really helpful is one called Repurpose, and I'm going to link these in the show notes. But Repurpose is a tool that you can either set automatically or you can manually schedule your content to go from one platform to another. So my TikToks will go to trial reels on the weekends. My TikToks will go to Pinterest. TikToks will go to YouTube Shorts when I can be bothered resetting that up. But there's lots of different variations and ways to use it. There's way more things that you can do with that app, but that's one of the ways that there's constantly content going out. I had 70,000 views on Pinterest this month, which I think is probably the highest that I've ever had. And that's all just due to Later and Repurpose, nothing else. Another essential ingredient in allowing myself to get to this point where I can take this time off and make this man money is that I plan yearly. So I plan 12 months ahead at all times, and I know what needs to be done this month for next month. So it's not like it gets to May and I tell myself that I'm going to have May off and then I have to do all this work so that I can get offline. Or I say I'm going offline now, but I'm constantly getting emails and having to be online. I've organized myself long term so that it's possible. And that is one aspect that I don't think you could do this if you didn't long term plan. So, a tool that I have to help you long term plan, which I think they start at $25, is my Notion planners. So, I'll link those in the show notes, but it's what I use in my business and it's what I use to plan myself in this way and to make these breaks possible. And what I would say is when you get that plan and you look at your 12-month plan ahead, the first thing you should do is to block out your holidays and your breaks, even if you're not going on holiday, but block out breaks and then plan the year. What a lot of people do is they like think of the 25,000 products they're going to launch that year and they put all of the launches in and then they go, oh, I was going to have a break. Nah, that's not going to get you to this place. You have to be boundaried and conscious and a little bit strict with yourself around keeping those breaks in. So those are some of the ways that I do it. If you want to know a little bit more details and a little bit more science, I do have a Substack article that I released recently, which goes into that profitability aspect and the science of why I take these breaks and how. But I just wanted to end this episode by saying another integral ingredient of this is that you stay committed to your vision even when other people don't understand it. Now, I'm doing that right now. That's me in real talk being like, people do not believe that my life is real. And I'm sitting here, my life's pretty plain. It's pretty boring. There's not a lot going on. It's not like I'm selling a fantasy. I just take a day off and read in my lunch break and go for dog walks and go to the gym. There's nothing crazy going on over here, but people don't believe it. And that's right now. But my whole business from before I started it, no one understood it and no one believed it. And sometimes other business owners don't believe it. Sometimes family don't believe it. Sometimes partners don't believe it. Sometimes friends get very competitive and very upset about it. If they're wanting to do that and they're not, or they're trying to do that and I'm having quicker or more success with them, I've lost friendships over this because they didn't understand my commitment to it. And I just have to say, if you want a life like this, you need to be locked in and you need to have long-term planning and vision that you do not allow yourself to get rocked from. You do not allow small-minded opinions to get in the way of where you want to be and where you're going. A huge part of that is having a plan, sticking to a plan, and learning to govern yourself. I think a big part about making plans that stick and governing yourself is living in alignment with your personal values. That's something that I cover in my book, Radical Self-Honoring. And in a few episodes, I'm going to do an episode helping you break down how you actually work out what your values are, which is what the book walks you through in a really long, windy way. But this is to say, I'm not lying about this. If you need to see my pay slips, I will put them on the internet. That feels like a bit of a intruding on my personal liberties as a human. But if it needs to be done, my accountant can do it. She can give us the pay slips and we can put them up there. Because the fact that people don't believe something that I find so normal because it feels so far out of their current reality and they will not back themselves enough to try and get it, that they would prefer to put energy into disproving me, I find incredibly sad. And if you're like, you know what, I'm not on the side of the disbelievers, I do believe this and I know I could do this and I trust Clara and I know that I could get this life if I stick with it and I build it properly. I only have a few spaces left for one-to-one work this year with me, and you can book a free 15-minute alignment call with me to see if it's right for you and if it's even going to suit your business. It's not always going to suit your business, so we can chat it through. But if this episode has given you any enlightenment, any expansion, please make sure to leave a review or a rating and share it with a friend if you feel like there's someone else that needs to hear it. And I'll be back in your ears next week.